Hey, what's up, everybody? Christian Brindle here. Welcome back to another episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. We got a doozy of an episode for you today. We're going to be talking about how my company is doing, an update on kind of what this year has brought for my insurance organization. We're going to be talking about Taylor Swift's Eras Tour and how it could very well become and is most likely to become the highest grossing tour of all time, how it's going to make her a billionaire, a Billy killer. We're going to be talking about the updated Andrew Tate situation. We're going to be talking about the Threads versus Twitter war. And we're going to talk about the Jake Paul, Nate Diaz fight that happened earlier this month, my opinion on it, the Jake Paul Netflix documentary, and everything else in between. Buckle up. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks so much for being with me here today to another episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. I'm your host, Christian Brindle, and this is the podcast where we talk about growing your business to 7 figures. We also talk about what's going on in the world from a perspective of somebody that's trying to grow their business to 7 figures, an entrepreneur, if you will, a real entrepreneur. And we have quite a few things to touch on in this episode here today. I want to start off by saying, if you've been listening to the show, I apologize that we have not been consistent with our uploading. We are getting back on the grind. We're getting back on the schedule where we will be bringing you weekly episodes, so watch out for that. I want to start off today's episode by just talking a little bit about my company and where things are at this year and what I feel like I've learned over the course of the process that might help you in your own growth with your own organization, depending on whether you're doing an insurance or maybe you're doing something else. So for anybody that doesn't know, I run an insurance business called Christian Brindle Insurance Services. It's named after me, Christian Brindle Insurance Services Incorporated. I also have a few subsidiary businesses connected to that business, and I'm in the insurance business. My company does Medicare health plans. My company does health insurance. My company does a little bit of life insurance. And it has been a business that I've been building for approximately 10 years. Okay, I just turned 31 about a week ago today at the time of recording this episode. And it was kind of a reflection on me because 10 years, 11 years, something around that time frame is when I actually started growing my business. Now, it wasn't incorporated. It was something that I actually did all on my own. Everything was paid to my social security number, no employees, nothing like that. And, really the business was started off building a clientele. And once we did that, it grew incredibly well. Once I was able to build that clientele and build a very good clientele into the thousands, then we started working with agents across the country to try to help them duplicate what that we actually do. And we started doing consulting. We started doing courses. We started having agents put their insurance contracts connected to us to where we make a small override when they make sales when they work with us, but we provide them a lot of resources, training, technology, and different things like that in order to kind of provide them the ability to kind of grow their business. And so it's kind of a partnership of sorts. We have in the ballpark of about 400 plus contracted agents across the country. We have thousands of clients. People are always asking how CBIS is doing. CBIS is doing incredibly well. It's growing, it's thriving. And for anybody that does business with us in any regard, I appreciate your support and I appreciate your partnership over the years. CBIS did a partnership earlier in this year with a company called Integrity Marketing. If anybody has not heard of Integrity Marketing, they are the 600-pound gorilla in the senior insurance distribution space more than anything else. And Integrity Marketing has become synonymous probably the past 5 to 7 years of buying the largest independent agencies, distribution companies, technology companies. In our industry, there's a term called FMO. FMOs essentially are built up of thousands of contracted agents, and they push distribution for insurance companies. We did a partnership with Integrity Marketing that saw us align with them exclusively, and we're one of the very few organizations that have ever partnered with Integrity Marketing and ever will partner with Integrity Marketing. It's an honor to be able for us to do that. So our business is going incredibly well. I saw a statistic the other day that said in terms of production, our organization did as more production in quarter one of 2023 than we did in all of 2022. So that kind of gives you a little bit of ideas in terms of what our growth is actually looking like. The business is going incredibly well. So people are always asking how the business is doing. If it's growing substantially, and it's a seven-figure agency at this point. And so everything I come into this podcast to talk to you guys about really comes from a perspective of things I've learned over the years in terms of building a seven-figure business. Mistakes I've made, and I've made plenty, I assure you. Things that I've done that have ended up paying off, and things that I did that were correct and something that I needed to do. Maybe I didn't even know it at the time. It might have just even been dumb luck more than anything else. And so that's kind of where this podcast is really coming from, just guidance from my own trials and tribulations, okay? This business is all about growing your business, all about cracking seven figures. The first episode we ever did was why you have to be a seven-figure business in today's economy if you really want to be free. $1 million is not as much as it used to be because of our current economy, inflation, how many more millionaires there is based on has been in our history as a nation and as an economy and as a world, really, more than anything else. And so I think it's something that's important to kind of talk about. On this episode today, you guys, I want to talk about several things, as a matter of fact. I want to talk about some things that I've been following that I feel like are incredibly interesting, that I believe you can learn from just by paying attention and asking the right questions. The first thing is I've been following this Taylor Swift tour. So Taylor Swift has been on tour, wraps up in August. I don't know the exact day. It's called her Eras Tour, and it's been everywhere. I've been hearing about it constantly. Now, Taylor Swift has been around for a very long time. I remember hearing Taylor Swift's music when I was in high school, guys. I'm 31. I just turned 31. Gotta be about 15 years or so, if I had to guess. And so with Taylor Swift, she's obviously, an award-winning music artist. She's incredibly talented. She's got hit after hit after hit. Like her or not, it's not really what this is about. But what really shocked me when I did some research into her tour is her Eras Tour, according to Forbes, could become one of the highest grossing, if not the highest grossing tours of all time. It's expected to pay Swift, by the end of it, an estimated total of north of $500 million. $500 million. Her net worth could go into the billionaire status when it's all said and done after this tour wraps up. Ridiculous. Now, if you look at the tour ticket costs, if you were looking at it, maybe there was a show date that was coming to a city near you that wasn't coming to a city near me, so it didn't even really cross my radar. But when I started looking at it in various cities, like I looked at the one she just recently did in California, the tickets were, for the most part, $1,500, $2,000 minimum price to get in for a ticket, and they went up a lot higher than that. Now, I started thinking to myself, I said, who's worth that for a concert? I've been to a lot of concerts in my day. I'm a music guy. If anybody doesn't know that about me, I'm a fan of a lot of different music. But when I started kind of listening to people, celebrities, influencers, just different people that paid the money and went to the shows, everybody said that it was absolutely phenomenal. I heard several people say that I wouldn't probably be the first people I would expect to be Taylor Swift fans, let me be honest with you, that was the best concert that they had ever seen. People that like rap music, things like that, people like hard rock, come out and say that it was the best show that they had ever seen. And her performance was immaculate. From what I've been able to understand, the presentation and the showmanship that went into the preparation of this tour was at an all-time high. The stage, the outfits, the changing of outfits, the platforms, the going up and down, and just the showmanship of it is something I can certainly be appreciative of. We all know Taylor Swift is a very talented music artist. So my reaction to this, because I saw some people, hating on Taylor Swift about this. I saw other people online, as there is with most things, being happy for her. My reaction was, get your money, girl. Good for you. I've always said, if somebody is willing to pay you for something, that is your market value. If someone is willing to pay you something for a service, that's your market value. People always say, like, what's the market value for me to do consulting per hour? What's my market value for me to sell a course? What's my market value to do this, to do that? The answer always is whatever somebody is willing to pay you. If you're selling a course that's 20 grand and there's people out there that are willing to pay you 20 grand for the course, then that's your market value. If the most somebody will pay for a training or a course or anything like that you're doing is $200, then that is also your market value. Whatever somebody is willing to pay is what the market is demanding for it, right? That's your market value. And so Taylor Swift showed that she's got immense value. Her tour in general, it's paying her $500 million. It's generating multiple billions of dollars for the music companies, the venues, the cities that she's performing in. The impact of this one tour is multi-billions of dollars. And so this is kind of the way you need to look at things in your own life. What kind of value are you bringing to the table? Because what are people willing to do business with you or work with you or see you or get a glimpse of you? Or based on your product or service, what are people willing to pay? What's your market value? And I think it's a lesson for everybody to learn. I think the sky is the limit if you can find ways to bring more value to what you're doing. For me, I'm always looking for better ways for us to bring more value to our clients, to our agents, to people that we do consulting with. How can we bring more value? Because if we bring more value, one, people are going to be looking for us far and wide. People are going to be just absolutely raving about our service. People are going to be sending everyone they know over to us. But in addition to that, for the things that I'm able to kind of control the cost, people are going to pay more. People are going to pay more for a product, a course, a training, everything in between. So don't hate on someone like Taylor Swift. Get your money, Taylor Swift. Good for you. That is absolutely inspiring to me. And that was kind of what my thoughts were on the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. Are you a Medicare agent and you're struggling to kind of know which direction that you should possibly be going? Maybe that you feel like you're just going nowhere fast. You don't have guidance. You don't have direction. Maybe your upline isn't working with you. Maybe your upline doesn't really know what they should be teaching you. I got news for you. You're not in the wrong industry. Financial services has produced more millionaires than any other industry on this planet. You have the right vehicle, you just don't have the right information. This is actually a common problem. Even if you're looking to get into this business, know that 90 to 95% of people fail out in their first 2 to 3 years based on studies. The reason for this, in my opinion, is lack of information on how to succeed in the modern era. I was tired of seeing agents fail far and wide, people coming into this business and failing out, not knowing what to do, and not being able to take care of their families and their loved ones. Because of that, I put together a curriculum called Six Figure Medicare University. It is going to teach you step by step, A to Z, how to grow your business, whether you need help understanding the industry, understanding the products. It's got beginner trainings in the early modules on those certain topics. Whether you need higher level help, like how to close a sales call, how to actually conduct a sales call, there's plentiful sales training on how to actually make sales calls and acquire new clients and close your leads as a Medicare agent. Maybe you need help with business structure. Maybe you need help with branding. Maybe you need help with hardcore digital marketing or marketing in general. This course has everything you're going to need to know. It actually lays out the blueprint of how I built my business and my agency to a 7-figure business. Normally, this is a $2,500 investment for lifetime access to Six Figure Medicare University, but because you watch this video here today, I want to give you a promotion and an offer that's going to be one of a lifetime. Because you watch this video, if you go to the link down in the description of this video, you'll be able to get lifetime access to Six Figure Medicare University for a one-time transaction of $1,200. Not only do you get lifetime access to the course is always updating. We are every single week adding new trainings into the library of trainings in the university. You will not be disappointed. There is no other Medicare specific course that has created more six-figure earners than Six Figure Medicare University. I hope to see you in there, and let's get your business where it needs to be and up and rolling. So let me shift gears to a different topic here. Let's talk about Andrew Tate. Earlier in the year, I did an episode where I talked about the Andrew Tate situation. At that point in time, there was very limited information on what was actually going on and what the whole deal was with his case. For those of you who don't know, I'll kind of summarize. If you're not familiar with Andrew Tate is a former world champion kickboxer, won multiple divisions during his career in Europe as a kickboxer, professional kickboxer. He retired, went off, created several business ventures, created an online persona, an online brand, lives in Romania, and for lack of better explanation, has found himself in a lot of controversy over the past year or so, primarily due to the fact that he says a lot of crazy and outlandish things. Now, is everything that Andrew Tate says crazy and outlandish? No, I wouldn't say that's true at all. Andrew Tate is an incredibly wealthy, successful individual. Andrew Tate is a very accomplished individual, and Andrew Tate is a really smart guy if you ever hear him speak. I've listened to so many different interviews to try to get a real feel for what this guy is all about. I will say, I have kind of come to the conclusion that I believe some of the early Andrew Tate things, where he said some just crazy, outlandish things. He's been labeled a misogynist. Whether he is or not, I can't really say for sure. Only I think he knows for sure, because no one knows his heart, per se. But I would say that it seems to me like his bravado, his online persona, look at me, I'm smoking cigars and driving fast cars and Lamborghinis, and I'm, saying this and I'm saying that, I'm saying whatever I want, I'm all for, masculinity. I do believe some of that is a bit of an act. I don't think all of it is. I do think that some of it he really believes, but I do think that, and he's admitted this in several interviews in the past, that sometimes he'll say something that is, for the most part, commonly accepted. Like, for example, I heard him use this example in an interview with Patrick Bet-David on the Patrick Bet-David podcast, on the PDB podcast. That's a mouthful. The example that he specifically gave was, instead of saying men are stronger than women, it says women are weak. And which is essentially the worst way you can kind of characterize that, but it is intentional because he knows that people are going to be like, can you believe this guy said this? It's going to cause him to go viral, and then people are going to have more eyeballs on him, and at the end of the day, what he's trying to do is he's trying to sell a course. It's the type of marketing to where it's the mentality of all publicity is good publicity. That is really Andrew Tate's mantra. If you really kind of look into his strategy, I do believe that a lot of it is showmanship. But of course, he said a lot of crazy things that I certainly don't stand by. At the same time, he says a lot of really insightful things. He says a lot of very motivational things. So is there completely good or completely bad when it comes to the philosophies and the message that Andrew Tate spews out to the world? I would say you can't say it's all good. You can't say it's all bad. He is very polarizing from the standpoint that the people that support him to the end. The people that criticize him want to see him canceled and destroyed no matter what. And to see those two forces kind of divide and go at each other has been absolutely fascinating. Last year, around this time, give or take, Andrew Tate found himself canceled on all social media platforms. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, although he did get his Twitter back after Elon Musk bought the platform, YouTube. And the only social media platforms that he was able to keep was, he was able to keep his Rumble account, which is a YouTube competitor, and he was able to get his Twitter account back after Elon Musk purchased the company. So it's kind of interesting. Then there was stories that came out that he was being investigated for sex trafficking. And when you hear sex trafficking, when I hear the term sex trafficking, I think of people being, blindfolded, handcuffed, and put in the back of a trunk or a car or something like that. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm sure that's what a majority of people think of when they hear that term. And he was actually ended up being arrested and detained in a Romanian jail for charges such as this. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the whole case of Andrew Tate, but what we've seen after his release, he was released after 3 months or so in Romanian jail, placed on house arrest. And from the time he was placed on house arrest until he was just recently taken off house arrest. And so he's, as time has gone on, he's been given more and more of his freedom back, which in my opinion probably means that there's a very good likelihood that he ends up being innocent, because if the state actually believes that you're a threat to society, they're not going to give you more and more leverage, more and more freedom to be able to move about and do your thing. Now his terms are he can't leave the city in Romania that he lives in. But it started with him being locked away in a jail cell for 90 days. And he described it as really being alone, being in one room, no internet, no nothing, sleeping with bugs in his bed, cockroaches, things like that crawling all over him. Sounded absolutely horrible, like what you would picture from like a third world country dungeon or prison or something like that. That's really what it sounds like when he actually describes it. It sounds absolutely horrifying. He comes out of prison, gets put on house arrest. He's on house arrest for some time. I don't remember the exact time frame. And from that time, everybody that's a who's who in the podcasting world, in the political world, wants to interview this guy. He's getting interviewed by liberal media outlets trying to really demonize him, like the BBC. He gets interviewed by Candace Owens, who travels to Romania to interview him. He gets interviewed by Tucker Carlson, who travels to Romania to interview him. And the more and more that's come out on this case is really, really interesting to me. You first find out that the charges do not mean what you really think they mean when you hear the term trafficking. What the charges actually meant was tricking women into working for him and as a webcam model or as a social media model, and him keeping all the money. And that's what the charges end up being, not what I originally would have thought when you hear the term trafficking. So more information comes out. Turns out the woman that accused him has accused 6 or 7 other men of similar charges over the previous few years. Wild. And Candace Owens did an absolutely fascinating video on her channel. I highly recommend you go check it out, to where she actually details the accusations, the story, and everything else in between. And it looks very bad. It looks like that there was an American citizen that traveled to Romania, allegedly, was spoiled, wasn't given everything that she wanted money out of Andrew and his brother, and was texting a friend back in the United States, and making up things about this happening, that happening. That friend calls the U.S. Embassy. She tries to pull back her charges, saying, "Oh, I didn't mean it. It wasn't real true." But at that point, the U.S. Embassy then puts pressure on the Romanian government to take action, and the Romanian government essentially abides by the will of the U.S. Embassy. It's what it sounds like. And when you see the footage, it's even worse. The footage of the girls in question that were reportedly being held against their will, coming and going as they please. There's footage available of this. There's security cam footage at the home. They're coming and going as they please. They're laughing. They're going out to the street to pick up a pizza from a delivery driver and bringing it back in. Like, that the evidence that has started to come out since we last talked about this on the podcast is absolutely damning. And it definitely looks bad for the country and the government of Romania, if I'm being quite honest. Because in America, we're used to a system that has everything to do with innocent until proven guilty. But if it is true that Andrew Tate is innocent of these charges of holding people hostage, of trafficking, of all these things, and he was still detained in a Romanian prison for 90 days. He was still put on house arrest for endless months. They still seized millions of dollars of assets, jewelry, watches, cars, and he's innocent. Oh, what a absolute fuck up for the Romanian government. No one is ever going to want to visit that country, ever. It's absolutely a crazy story, and in my opinion, kind of my opinion on it is, why is this happening? I think, if you ask Andrew Tate will say it is the Matrix. It's, the system wanting to silence him. In my opinion, it sounds like a spoiled brat girl who, when she doesn't get her way, she allegedly, I have to use that word, accuses men of crazy, heinous things. One of the men is serving 20 to 25 years in prison based on an allegation of hers. Another man that she was involved with, and there's no real evidence that it was because of an allegation that she came against him, but he committed suicide. Like if you look at the history of the accuser and you look at the details of the case that have come out that weren't available 6 months ago, it's absolutely crazy. Andrew Tate himself said that the reason why he moved to Romania, because he used to live in London, was so that he could be more be able to take advantage of corruption. He actually said that on a podcast. Looks horrible now. In my opinion, I think people like to criticize the United States of America, and a lot of it is, some of it, not a lot, even a lot of it, some of it might be deserved, but it makes me real glad that I'm an American and that I live in America. It's absolutely a crazy situation, the Andrew Tate situation. I want to shift gears over to Threads. Now, for those of you who did not hear about Threads, Threads is the Twitter competitor that Meta, Facebook, Instagram put out to try to make Twitter irrelevant. There's definitely a social media war going on between Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk. There's even rumored a UFC MMA match between the two, and they're both training for it with real professional fighters. This is absolutely ridiculous. These are two of the wealthiest, most influential, powerful men the planet has ever seen, and they might get in an MMA match in a cage and fight each other. It's unbelievable. Neither of which are fighters. I believe Zuckerberg is a black belt now, so maybe I'm not sure kind of what Elon's credentials are there, but this is a thing. The war between Meta, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Zuckerberg versus Musk. And so Threads comes out relatively in July, and they immediately had 8 million users. Now, if you are an Instagram user, you probably saw that you could immediately have your account mirror your Instagram account. So that was very smart on their end, because then people didn't have to actually register. People could actually sign up just with the click of the button from their Instagram login on their app on their phone. And it mirrored, you followed the same people, you had the same bio, the same profile picture. It was essentially like an extension of your Instagram account. But because of that, it had over 8 million daily active users almost immediately, the fastest platform ever to do so. It closes July with 8 million users. As of early August, the user base, the daily active users was down almost 90%. Some studies showed 82% from its peak. Wow. And why do I feel like that is? Well, if you really look at it, people say that Twitter is promoting hate speech. ever since Elon Musk purchased the platform. I believe that people that say that confuse hate speech with speech that they disagree with. And there is a big difference between the two. Facebook and Meta is by far the biggest offender platform that we have right now of suppressing views that they don't agree with. It happens all of the time. Twitter is not doing that. In fact, I never really used Twitter. Now I'm using Twitter, and I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like the platform's better. Threads was essentially Twitter, is almost entirely the same features, same everything across the board. It was definitely a carbon copy of the Twitter platform. That's what it was designed to be. But for anybody that feels like the Meta platforms are suppressing certain opinions and certain ideologies, it's basically like Twitter with censorship, is the way a lot of people would look at it. And so I think it was exciting, new platform. Everybody wants to get in on a new platform. It's new, shiny object, but it doesn't seem to have the lasting power, right? And it's interesting to kind of see that, though, and it will be interesting to see what the platform has as a future going forward. I believe that it could, over the course of time, become a very viable platform on its own. But at this point, it's a new platform. It's an extension of Instagram. And it's the same login, same accounts, everything like that. So a lot of people probably switched over from using Instagram. Now they switched back to using Instagram from Threads. It's probably why the user base is down so much. Last thing I want to talk about on today's episode is Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. So in the last couple of weeks or so, the long-awaited fight between YouTuber Jake Paul and Nate Diaz, the probably future Hall of Fame UFC fighter, took place. Now, Jake Paul has fought many UFC fighters in a traditional boxing match, right? Not a MMA match, but a boxing match, such as Tyron Woodley twice, such as, well, there's several, Anderson Silva, and now Nate Diaz. Beat them all. Very impressive for someone that's a YouTuber. I think people think that the whole Jake Paul boxing thing, experiment is kind of really a joke, but this dude knocked a lot of people out. This guy fought a lot of professional and very credible martial arts and combat sports people. Now, granted, Nate Diaz is in his late 30s. Do I think he would have beat Nate Diaz at 25? No, I don't think so. He's probably got 13 years, 14 years younger than Nate Diaz. He fought Anderson Silva, a washed-up old Anderson Silva. He fought Tyron Woodley, who was 40, I believe, both times. Knocked him out. But impressive nonetheless. Jake has lost one fight, and that was to Tommy Fury. And he's won all of his other fights. Now, the whole rap on Jake Paul in this YouTube boxing is they're not real fighters. They don't fight other real boxers. And the competition isn't there. So it makes it look good because they're knocking out people that aren't real boxers. Valid, fair, but also unfair for what I believe Jake Paul, KSI, Logan Paul are doing for the sport of boxing. If you look at the boxing numbers, the sport was actually dying. Right? Pay-per-view numbers were not even that high, even for great boxers like Canelo Alvarez, who would sell a lot of pay-per-views, but the sport just didn't have a whole lot of interest, a whole lot of buzz for a sport that thrives on paid-per-view packages. And these YouTubers come in, they bring in a whole new audience, and people are buying the pay-per-views at record margins. These UFC guys are getting in the ring with the Paul brothers, with Jake Paul, with Logan Paul, more Jake Paul than Logan Paul. But they're doing it because they can get a bigger payday than they ever got probably in the UFC instantly, overnight. So that's why they're willing to do it, because if you really look at what UFC fighters are paid, it's pretty minimal, all things considered. A lot of times they're not even, they're making 50 grand, right? Or they're making $100,000 for a fight. But then you factor in coaches they have to pay, training camps they have to pay, taxes, all of this stuff. They're really not netting all that much money. UFC fighters do not make nearly what NBA players do, baseball players do, NFL players, not even close. So a lot of these guys, if they can take a fight with a YouTuber and it's a boxing match, it's not an MMA match, it's not going to be nearly as brutal in most cases, and they can make millions, yeah. So I as somebody that actually does kind of like the sport of boxing, and I can appreciate it, and I've been known to order a pay-per-view from time to time, I think it's good for the sport. It's bringing a new fan base. It's bringing more eyeballs in a sport that desperately needs eyeballs. So I appreciate hustle. I appreciate the grind. And if you kind of follow the Jake Paul story, this dude works his ass off. This dude trains very hard. He's incredibly dedicated and disciplined and focused on the sport of boxing. So I have a lot of respect for that, because when you have the level of fame that a Jake Paul has, and you could do anything, your options are unlimited, and you choose to do training, kill yourself physically, and put yourself in a ring to get punched in the face and to get physically harmed, and that's what you choose anyway, I got a lot of respect for that. I think very admirable, actually. And I think it's good that some of these, older, retired UFC guys can make an easy payday, because they probably didn't make enough during their time in the UFC, chances are. Not everybody was a Conor McGregor, right? Not everybody was making huge pay-per-view bouts from UFC like a Conor McGregor was. Conor McGregor was a one-of-a-kind star. Was he the greatest UFC fighter? Probably not, but he was marketable like no other UFC fighter ever has been. And so, just something that's interesting, if you really don't understand the Jake Paul story, the Netflix documentary that they just did, that just came out recently, I actually watched it on Jake Paul. It's fascinating. From the YouTube start for him and his brother, getting into boxing, his fights, highly recommended. Even if you don't like the Paul brothers necessarily, it's a good watch. It's a good watch. And it gives you a much deeper look into what this dude's all about. So just wanted to kind of quickly talk about that. Anyway, guys, that brings us to the end of episode 8 of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. If you like these type of topics, please let us know by commenting down below. If you have other topics you'd like us to talk about, please let us know on that as well. We're going to be bringing you more consistent episodes of the pod, so I hope that you guys enjoy the content that we're putting out. Of course, this is always to bring you information from a perspective on what the way you need to be looking at things to grow a 7-figure business. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.